name's Nick Wilks, and this is the Phoenix Focus podcast, coming to you, as you can see, from my day job. I'm a truck driver. I've been doing this for quite a while now. I enjoy it. It gets me out and about, and it's better than being on the street, as I say. This is my home. I'm in now. At the moment I'm in Scotland, travelling down to England, 430 miles to go to tip tomorrow morning. But yeah, I'm here. I spend 5 nights a week in here, 2 at home, go home on a Friday night and come to work on a Sunday night. Sleep in the lorry, so I can set off nice and early Monday morning, wherever I'm going. Although this week, because I was coming up to Scotland to tip this morning, because today's Monday, so I could tip this morning, I set off Sunday morning, 4 o'clock Sunday morning, set off. So I came to work Saturday night. So I went home on Friday night, got home about 8 o'clock at night, and 7:30 Saturday night I was back at work again. No rest for the wicked, as they say. But yes, I came up to Dundee yesterday, and now I'm reloaded a load of potatoes for Kingsley tomorrow. So that's what I do. That's what I've been doing for quite a while. I've got a squeak in here, a chair squeaking. You should actually see if I can stop it from. That works. Yeah. Try and stop it from bouncing. No, it's even worse. Like that one. That's even worse. Oh my god. I've never noticed a squeak before, and it's suddenly, while I'm actually videoing, it's come on, this squeak. Really, I don't know if you can hear that. I hope you can. I hope you can't, sorry. I'll just ignore it for now. I've never noticed it before. That's all. Right, my question, and please answer in the comments below. I'd like to hear your comments. See if I'm on the right track with things as far as you're concerned. But my question today is, what's happened to the Democrat Party in America? I don't understand where you're coming from. I really don't. You're acting strangely. I can understand a little bit why, and come on to that. But it's supposed to be an opposition party. You're in opposition at the moment. An opposition party, like the Labour Party was the Conservatives in the UK, and the Conservatives now are opposition against Labour. I mean, Labour are doing some stupid things, but we don't actually get judges to stop Labour doing what they're doing. We just they oppose them in Parliament, and maybe just don't vote for whatever they try legislation they try and bring forward. But if they've got a vast majority, then it's going to pass. That's all you can do, really. You don't mobilise the workforce to go out and burn down things and vandalise things, which is what's happening in America, but in the US, which is absolutely disgusting. But the Democrats oppose absolutely everything. The opposition is supposed to try and find common ground. If things aren't being done, if you think things are being brought forward and done that are not fair and they're not right, then fine, oppose them. Oppose them in Congress, oppose them in the Senate. Make your thoughts heard. Actually, in sessions. But all they seem to do is go on on their little soapboxes and shout and scream and holler, and then their propaganda arm of the media, as you know, NBC, MSNBC, CBS, CNN, and their left-leaning papers, they just echo everything, absolutely echo everything that they're saying. And they have them on there with no fact-checking, no opposition to anything that they say. Journalism seems to have gone out of the window. Investigative journalism definitely has gone out of the window. There used to be programmes in the UK like Panorama and other programmes where they would pick a topic and journalists, reporters would go out and investigate exactly what was going on. You don't see that anymore. You definitely don't see it in America. 60 Minutes is supposed to do that sort of thing, but they are so partisan nowadays. That's shown in the Kamala Harris interview. Kamala Harris, her interview was cut up, chopped and edited, which is fine. You're allowed to do that. Chop and edit things. But you don't swap answers or cut out bits of answers just to make someone seem smarter than she actually is. Because let's face it, she's a dumbass. She's one of the worst candidates I have ever seen for any office. Any office at all. And I thought I'd seen some bad ones in the UK, but nothing like that. And her VP, Tim Wilks, he is mad as a March hare. And he's got a very shady past as well. Which, if you want to know what that is, you listen to Candace Owens, and she investigated Tim Wilks and his past, why he resigned as a school teacher, him and his wife, and some of his shady dealings with China. Anyway, I'll let you investigate that for yourself. But this week he's been mad. He's gone out and he's actually glorifying Tesla dealerships and Tesla cars being torched, burned, vandalised, so that Tesla stock goes down, plummets, and he seems to get great joy. Do you remember the DNC that it was all about joy? Joy this, joy that, joy this, joy that. There's no joy in that party anymore. It's all doom and gloom. But he's finding joy in Tesla stock going down without even taking any consideration for the fact that his state's pension fund is heavily invested in Tesla stock. So it directly affects pensioners and the pension fund in his state. It's just, the guy's mad and shouldn't be allowed something like that to. He should be voted out straight. The next time elections come up, he should be voted out without a shadow of a doubt. But I don't know. I often wonder why anybody votes for the Democrats at the moment, or why they would. I'm sure that California will still retain its Democrat senators. I'm sure they won't vote out Gavin Newsom as governor, or maybe even the mayor of LA. Maybe she won't be voted out either. And I can understand that to a point, because if you only get your information from the Democratic propaganda news outlets, then you're going to think everything is going to shit. But it's not. It's a bright future, a very bright future in America. If only Trump can get his agenda done. But the people that are crying most and shouting the loudest are the ones who are being affected by it more than anything else. Everything he does. Doge, for instance. Elon Musk has now become the pariah. They're calling him all the names that they tried calling Trump without any success. You know, he's a Nazi. He's an unelected bureaucrat who is sticking his nose in where it's not wanted. It is wanted. It was part of why Trump was elected, to actually clean house, to audit the government. And that's all he's doing, he's just auditing the government. I mean, the Defence Department hasn't cleared an audit, hasn't passed an audit in 7 years or more. They haven't passed those last 7 audits. They haven't passed. I don't think they've ever passed one. I'm not sure, but I know that one. 7 for it. So there's just black holes that this money goes into when it goes to the Defence Department, when it goes to the likes of USAID, which they use that name quite cannily to make it look like it was an aid organisation, and it wasn't. All it was a slush fund, basically, to pay off non-government organisations, NGOs, and then for the money to come back via George Soros in donations or some sort of backhanders. I should be very interested to see what happens when and if Kash Patel and Pam Bondi get round to investigating how senators and others high in the government suddenly became very, very rich. The senator on, I think it's around 100,000 a year they're on. And yet the likes of Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Bernie Sanders, and it's not just Democratic senators either. It's Republicans as well have been in on it. This slush fund make them very, very rich. Just lining their own nests, lining their own pockets. And that's what USAID was. Right? Maybe they had a couple of charitable outgoings, if you like. But even those, you find that most of the money did not filter down to where it should. I'm sorry about the lighting here, by the way. It's a very, very sunny day today, which is a change in, I was going to say in Britain, I was going to say in England. I'm not actually in England. I shall be soon. But I come down past Britain and Green. At the moment, I'm slowly just coming down to Ecclefechan. Those fine Scottish names. Where was it? Oh yes. This slush fund. Just wasteful projects. But you know damn well they go. Well, I'm not saying they go and it's fraudulent, but a lot of it is. Can't say that with any certainty at the moment until it's investigated further, properly. But a lot of what was happening was actually to, how can I say this, cause chaos in other countries as well. Funding for gays in Islamic countries, transgender campaigns and things in countries that won't tolerate that kind of thing. All you're going to end up doing is getting these people thrown off the roofs of buildings do. Which makes me laugh when they had all the queers for Palestine and the trans for Palestine and all that sort of thing, and you think, if you went over there, they'd kill you. Absolute madness, absolute madness. Also need to look into the funding of those organisations as well. Trump said something over the weekend which was very good when he was about the protesters, or people protesting Tesla dealerships. Funny how their signs are all look alike and they're all well made, they're all made by the same company. No matter where they are, they're not organic, these demonstrations, protests. They're organised. Talking of being organised, March 29th. Jasmine Crockett will tell you it's her birthday, and all she wants to see on her birthday is all Elon Musk taken down. Whatever that means. After all the firebombing and shootings that have been going on, people shooting up cars. And if you watch the TikTok videos of people being stopped in their cars and told, you've got to sell this car. Something bad is going to happen. And the likes of Tim Walz, Jasmine Crockett, AOC, Bernie Sanders, they're stoking the fire. And it's going to end up with somebody being killed. And I hope that doesn't happen. And I hope they can do something about it. The weird thing is, what is it? I can't remember. They call it the Tesla takedown. Was it the Tesla takedown? It's supposed to be happening on March 29th. So they've got their own social media thing, probably on Blue Sky. I think they're on X as well with it, but isn't that a bit of a warning as to where they're going to be and when? Surely something can be done about that. I don't know, maybe not. But they're quite right to class these people as terrorists, because they are terrorising people. And also not forgetting that the Democratic Party was all for eco-friendly and electric cars, and here they are advocating for torching and selling electric cars. It's double standards, and it shows that they were never okay with it in the first place. It was all just a front, and all just posturing. It's ridiculous. But anyway, going back to the opposition for absolutely everything. They're using these activist judges, democratically appointed activist judges, to stop everything that Trump is doing. No matter what it is, he puts his pen to something, an executive order, or opens his mouth to say something, or puts it on Truth Social, which he likes to do. And within seconds, there's some activist judge somewhere issuing some judgment that he can't do it. Like the money that's supposed to be paid back to USAID so they can send it off to, to fund Sesame Street, the DEI Sesame Street in Iraq and stuff like that. I don't know how they can live with themselves, but they can, obviously, because they all hate Trump. It just shows, though, that these things, all the waste that's been brought to light by Elon Musk, it's not that they hate. It's the fact that he's uncovering what is going to be found out to be fraud. It's their gravy train. It's what makes them all rich. They're all getting rich from backhanders. The same way Biden was from Ukraine. So his son, that was, and China, of course. But as vice president, he was responsible for Ukraine. So suddenly they're sending all this money over to Ukraine, which then gets paid to energy companies and all sorts of different organisations within Ukraine. Most of it, the vast majority of it, never saw anything to go to the front. Never went towards the actual fighting. But like let's go back to the energy company, Burisma. So what happens? They pay their board vast amounts of money. They appoint Hunter Biden, who has got absolutely no history of anything to do with energy. They appoint him to the board, pay him vast amounts of money, which then, of course, trickles back to old dad. Yeah, and same with China. China's interests were being pushed through by Biden, and that was when he became president. Anything to do with China's interests, Biden wouldn't say anything about it, wouldn't go anything against it. The electric cars, for instance. Let's go back to the electric cars. And they had a summit on electric cars. I think it was in California. They had this summit, and the heads of the firms that actually manufacture electric cars were all invited to this summit, except the guy that makes the #1 selling electric car in the US and actually manufactures his cars in the US, i.e. Elon Musk. He wasn't invited. And why wasn't he invited? Because he'd gone away from the Democratic Party. He'd gone away from the party. He wasn't involved with the party anymore. He declared himself for Trump. So then he becomes enemy #1. All these Chinese companies were invited. And they all, although Biden said he never met any of these members of the Chinese party, of course all the firms in China are all affiliated with the party. They're all told what to do by that. Biden said he'd never met with any of these people. And yet his son was selling access to the president through paintings. He paints some shitty painting, and these people would pay vast amounts of money, like $500,000 for one of these crappy paintings, and he was selling them by the bushel. Spend a day, make a painting, sell it the next day. The Biden family have got to be investigated. We know that that's why the pardons were issued, pardoning every member of his family, and a blanket pardon, and also why Hunter Biden was pardoned all the way back to before he became a member of the board at Burisma. So it was 11 years, I think it was. 11 years back. But that might come unstuck. Daft thing is, he never pardoned himself. Joe Biden never pardoned himself. Now that seems very strange to me. As the head of this family, he never pardoned himself. And I think he was going to be a fall guy, to be honest with you. I think he was being set up to be a fall guy. Because I don't think he signed any of those pardons. They were all done by auto pen. At that time his mind was going. I mean, the classified documents case, it was ruled that he wasn't fit to stand trial. An old man with dementia. So he was declared unfit to stand trial then. So if he's unfit to stand trial then, how is he fit to be a president? Answer me that one, because I don't know. how he can be fit to be president if he's unfit to stand trial in a court case. And if he's unfit to stand trial in a court case, how can his signature be valid on a document if it wasn't him that signed it? It's rather strange, rather weird, and sun's in your face now, see. So, yeah, I think there's a great deal to be said for looking into the auto pen incidents, which I don't think he was fit to serve in the first place. He was a puppet, and so was his VP. They were put in as puppets, and the first executive orders were to open the border to all these migrants coming in, immigrants coming in, without any vetting. And, well, everybody couldn't understand why. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? You're making the country unsafe, making it even more bankrupt than it already is, through all this money that you're giving to them. I mean, they're giving them accommodation, they're giving them healthcare, they're giving them money, giving them food. In New York, they were giving them a credit card with, I think it was $700 on it, to feed themselves, putting them up in hotels. And you think, why? Why would they do that? And the reason for that is quite simple. The next step was to make them all suddenly blanket documented. That's what that app was all about. It was, if you register on the app, even if you're already in the country, you register on the app, and then they know who you are, and as one, you will then get blanket immunity from being deported, and blanket limited citizenship. That limited citizenship would be you're allowed to vote. And of course, who are you going to vote for? Not Ghostbusters. Who are you going to vote for? The Democratic Party. So then, of course, they ship them to all these cities, well, and the swing states, ship them out by plane to these places, so that they're going to tip the scales in the Democrats' favour. Never lose an election again. Never lose an election again. One way of keeping Trump out. They kept him out after his first term through, I believe, fraudulent means, and Trump believes as well, fraudulent means. He was kept out via these mail-in ballots, because don't forget COVID, so a lot of mail-in ballots. But a lot of unsigned mail-in ballots that were counted. I mean, the Republicans put up a protest about this, that they shouldn't be counted, but it was overruled, and they were counted, and that make a lot of difference. And they were counted, and in that particular election, these 20 million votes, there were 20 million more votes cast in that election than in any other election. And also the previous election just gone, 20 million more than that. So they couldn't do it a second time, because there was this too big to rig campaign that Trump was putting up. So they couldn't do it a second time. And they knew they wouldn't be able to do it a second time. He wasn't that stupid to let them get away with it. It was the first time, because he had a lot of people in his party that weren't working for him. A lot of Republicans that he had assigned different jobs that were also on this gravy train. I won't say who they are, because I'm not entirely sure who they were. But this time around, he coming in with a clean slate. He knew who he wants, and they have got to be loyal and agreeing with his agenda this time around. And they all are. And they're all friends. They all know each other. They're all friends. They've all got together and agreed that this is what the country needs. And it has to be done. And it has to be radical. And he's right. Absolutely right. It needs to be radical. Because the power behind the throne has been there and been building up since the Second World War. I think it was Eisenhower actually said when he was going out of office that beware the military-industrial complex. MIC is it's coming out. They do 3 letters on everything, don't they? MIC, military-industrial complex. Watch out for them because they want perpetual war. And that is the companies, and the men behind the companies, that make the war machines. Guns, aircraft, tanks, all those sort of things. That is the military-industrial complex. And through lobbying, they can earn a lot of money being handed out to people, making people in power very rich. They can get their agenda through, they can get what they want. And that was it, basically, I think, until the 60s. I mean, the CIA, which was supposed to be it was a spin-off from the OSS, I believe, wasn't it, in the Second World War. It was supposed to be an intelligence gathering operation, an agency, only working outside the US, only working on foreign soil. But they started getting involved in regime change, and heavily involved in regime change. They did it in Mozambique, I believe Guatemala, somewhere I think it's Indonesia, and a few other places. They helped orchestrate regime change against people who weren't very friendly to the US. And they did it in Cuba. They backed Castro to go in, and they armed him, they helped train his people, and backed him to the hills. Because a lot of American interests were in Cuba, a lot of farming interests in Cuba, a lot of farmland in Cuba was owned by Americans. I know one particular American who owned a lot of land in Cuba, and that was George H.W. Bush and his company over there. They owned a lot of wheat fields. He didn't just own oil, he was also into the farming side of things as well. But then when Castro got in, he turned round and kicked the American companies out of Cuba. Well, that, of course, infuriated all the US companies. So, right, time to regime change again. So, they then turned that machinery that they had to arm and train Castro's troops, to turn that into arming and training Castro's opposition. Ex-Cubans, Cuban people refugees from Cuba. Because when Castro went in, they didn't know that he was going to execute basically all the leadership that was there before him. They didn't expect that, but he did. He executed any opposition. And then turned round and decided that, thank you very much, America, now bugger off. It's like the equivalent of taking, I don't know, taking a friend to a dance and then going, right, here you go, bye, I'm going off somewhere else now. It's not a very good analogy actually, I'll tell the time. But yeah, Castro kicked the companies out, and so of course he had to go. And that was when the Bay of Pigs was organised. Now it wasn't going to succeed. The Bay of Pigs invasion was not going to succeed because it needed aerial backing. They needed dominance in the air to be able to do that. And to do that, they needed the US to get involved. Now, Kennedy come in. This was already being planned before he got into office. Fitzgerald Kennedy came in, JFK, and they put this plan to him. And he said, fine, go ahead with it. They lied to him. They said it had a lot of big chance of success. And they said, well, okay, it's already been planned and okay, then go ahead with it. But there will be no American involvement beyond what has already been done. There will be no air support, there will be no troops. We'll set foot in Cuba. And they went ahead with it. It's quite poignant actually that landing craft that were used for the Bay of Pigs invasion, one of them had the name of Bush's oil company, another one had his wife's name, and another one was called Texas, where he just moved his headquarters to. I find that quite poignant. And yet, of course, he had nothing to do with any of it. No, I think he was heavily involved in it. I think he was also heavily involved in 9/11. We'll get to that at some stage later on. Not in this video, but later on. There's no evidence of it, but I think through coincidence and innuendo, I think there's plenty of evidence, circumstantial evidence, to close him in on that one. There's no evidence that he was behind the Bay of Pigs. Just it's strange that his farms were under threat, and the landing craft had the names of associated with him. Very strange. Very coincidental. Quite honest with it like that. But of course, Kennedy said no. The Bay of Pigs failed, and he took it on the chin and had to go more or less cap in hand to the American people and apologise for it, and also had to make considerations to Castro in Cuba, saying that it'll never happen again, we will never touch it again, and he gave them billions in aid, which the people at the top, the generals and the people in charge of the CIA, as in Alan Dulles, didn't like that. Dulles got fired, and for the time he put his brother Robert in charge of the CIA, and then handed it to somebody else. He made his brother Inspector General instead, which was a weird choice. There you go. Yeah, but Dulles, of course, no longer head of the CIA, but the people under him, people that were his troops basically in the CIA, they were still there. In fact, the person that was put in charge, if I remember rightly, was also one of his underlings, and I'm trying to think of the word. Okay, see now, I forgot the word. Anyway, what they were loyal. I couldn't think of that word. People who were loyal to him. They are underneath him, underneath Dulles, there were, of course, people who were loyal to him. And in the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover also had people there that were loyal to him. Hoover was a strange character. He was a strange cat. Rampant homosexual, but that's beside the point. At that time, of course, it wasn't allowed, so that had to be kept secret. And he also was doing things, he was spying on everybody. He had files on everybody. So he could blackmail anybody for doing whatever he wanted. Very powerful man. Very, very powerful man through the FBI. And that's not to say that the whole of the CIA, the whole of the FBI were crooked. I think 99% of the CIA were loyal to the American people. They were there to do their job for the betterment of the US. The same in the FBI. People joined the FBI, they didn't join the FBI to screw their country, they joined the FBI to defend their country. To defend the people, the citizens. But just that circle at the top. That's all it needs. Just that circle at the top. So you got that in the CIA, who were loyal to Dulles. You've got ones in the FBI who are loyal to Hoover. You've got all these generals and chiefs of staff who Kennedy, I remember telling his brother after a chief of staff meeting, he said, whatever you do, don't let me ever listen to any of those guys again. So he would rather listen to the rank and file than listen to the generals. Because all they wanted war with Russia. Is what they wanted. War with Russia. Which was the whole idea of the Bay of Pigs. Because Castro, because the US was so against him, they tried to assassinate him a couple of times. He got his mistress to try and poison him, and she got cold feet at the last minute. They tried a few other assassination attempts on him. And so he reached out to the Russians for aid. And they equipped him with arms, but then they sent missiles over to be stationed there. Now they did it in response to the US placing missiles in Turkey, right on the Soviet border. So, yeah, tit for tat, basically. They tried to place these missiles on Cuba. They did in bits. They sent some over in bits, trying to put them together. But they also sending ships over there with them. Now the generals, the heads of the army and the navy, all wanted war, because at that time the US had nuclear superiority to Russia. It was worked out that a few million would die in the US, but they can obliterate the whole of Russia. Madness, absolute madness. Of course, this one plunges into a nuclear winter, regardless. It will set off a chain reaction, one way or another. But they thought that was a good thing to do. Kennedy thought that was absolute madness. And he'd had a good relationship with Khrushchev, who was in charge of the Soviet Union at that time. And as these ships were on their way, and the generals wanted to blow them out of the water before they reached Cuba, almost got to the point where they actually rescinded an order where they'd sent to shoot across the bows. Through back channels, secretly, Kennedy was exchanging letters with Khrushchev, and at the last minute Khrushchev turned it all around, issued the order, and the ships were turned around, and nuclear Armageddon was averted. But that was Kennedy, and he was fuming. at everybody and decided he was going to clean house. Said that he stated that he was going to scatter the CIA into 1,000 different pieces. That was one of the things he did, which of course Dulles didn't like, because even though he wasn't in charge of it, it was his baby. And also the generals thought that he capitulated to Russia, that he was a Russian puppet. Yeah, a Russian puppet. Sound familiar? Everybody's a Russian puppet if you don't agree with fighting them. You can't talk to these people. There's no reason why we should be at war, why we should be at war, why the US should be at war with Russia. No reason for it at all. We should be able to all get on. China, slightly different kettle of fish. They undermine everything. They steal patents. They don't give a shit about anything. Their latest thing is emulating all of Musk's designs, where they can catch rockets and launch and land them, and they haven't quite got it right yet, but they can launch a booster and land it again, which is interesting. I don't think they've got the pincer going yet, the chopsticks. I think quite manage that yet, but yeah, China's a different kettle of fish, but Russia, they've been allies in the past. 2 wars they've been allies, 2 world wars. Alright, they raped Germany afterwards, and they raped all the rest of the countries. They cleared them out of any usable rail stock or anything, all industry, and they made the countries desolate, basically, wastelands. But you can understand that. Well, we in the West built our side of Germany up into an industrial base. And before its reunification, West Germany was a shining example of what could be. And now the whole of Germany, as I do believe. I haven't been back in that time. The year I came out of Germany, away from Germany, was 1989. I was telling everybody that the Berlin Wall will be down within 5 years. I can see it. I know that the political situation over there, you guys might not know it yet, but within 5 years the Berlin Wall will be down. I didn't know that later that year it would come down. Nobody was more surprised than me at the time. But hey-ho, that's what happened. Yeah. So the Democrats, you notice I'm doing the weave here, the Trumpian weave here, and I'll get back to where I was at the beginning. I might go off at tangents, but then come back to the original premise of what I was talking about. The Democrats are not an opposition party at the moment. Not opposing Republicans, they're just opposing Trump and Elon. They seem to have them, I don't know, they must go to sleep thinking, what can I do now to stop Trump? Whatever he's doing, I want to stop him. I want to stop him. And Musk, I want to stop him. They don't seem to realise that burning Tesla dealerships and Tesla cars, that hurts their own Democratic followers as well. A lot of whom, like I said, they're eco-warriors. They bought Teslas. They own Teslas. So you're advocating, targeting your own people. I mean, targeting Americans full stop should not be happening. But targeting your own party members, that's just ludicrous. And alright, trying to tank Tesla stock is one thing. You're not going to hurt Musk through that. You're not going to hurt him through it at all. He is so rich you cannot touch him. You cannot touch him. I heard it last week that the amount of money he has behind him is phenomenal. If you earned $200,000 a day, and you had done for 2,025 years since the supposed birth of Christ, you still would not have as much money as he has now. And he earns more and more every day. He earns more in a day than most of us will ever do in a lifetime. In fact, all of us will ever do in a lifetime, unless you happen to be a Democratic politician, says he, allegedly. Yeah, you won't hurt him because he's got so much money. Alright, Tesla stock's gone down. What that is hurting is American workers, because there's a possibility they'll have to lay off workers because of the reduction in stock value. And this is an American company manufacturing American cars in America using American workers. You're hurting them, a lot of whom of course will be voting Democrat. So you're hurting your own party members again. It's crazy. You're not going to hurt Musk, alright? He must own at least 51% of Tesla shares. But the stock's gone down. It doesn't hurt him financially really, because the stock's going to go back up again. And he still owns the same amount of shares. So it won't hurt him at all. You're doing nothing except showboating and causing chaos for a lot of people. And you're making a lot of people very scared. And that is disgusting. And that is terrorism. That is the definition of terrorism. So these people have got to be stopped, they've got to be held accountable. And the politicians that are advocating it should also be held responsible. But the final word is, you cannot just oppose Trump. You've got to stand for something yourself. You have no policies. The Democratic Party has no policies of its own. Their policy is stop Trump. Trump is bad. They've all got Trump derangement syndrome. They're not bothered about policies. The reason they're not bothered about policies is because they're all stinking rich. They're all stinking rich. The economy doesn't hurt them. They've got so much money in the bank that came back from... You've seen the list of backhanders that came from Ukraine? I think Bernie Sanders is top of that list. You're talking millions and millions. They're all worth millions and millions of dollars. A lot of it has come in backhanders from the grants that were given, and they were grants, were given to Ukraine. And all that's happened over there is that Zelensky and the oligarchy that the Democrats keep going on about over there are getting richer and richer and richer. And meanwhile, the US taxpayer is funding things like sending models to Ukrainian models to the Paris Fashion Week. Yeah, not the fighting. Snatching kids off the street to go to the front and fight. They won't let anybody of fighting age leave the country. They're stopping them at the borders, beating them up and sending them to the front. It is a typical dictatorship, really. Although when Trump said that he was a dictator, for those reasons, everybody jumped down his throat. Because they haven't had elections, and you can't really have elections while a war's going on, I suppose. We did in the UK during the Second World War, but hey, you can't really have that. Yeah. But meanwhile as well, if you're in the US, your tax dollars are going towards funding a $1.2 billion ski resort that Ukraine is building on the Polish border. Did you know that? Yeah. This is the sort of thing that money is going towards. It's coming back into top Americans' pockets and not going to the front. What is going to the front, although we're not entirely sure about that, maybe it's just in warehouses, stocked up in warehouses over there, are firearms and ammunition. Firearms and ammunition. Oh, and by the way, spare fire engines from California, all their spare fire engines all got sent over to Ukraine. So there wasn't any extra capacity when the wildfires happened recently. Think about that one. The LA mayor sent them to Ukraine. So, yeah, think on that, LA mayor. People in Los Angeles and California who were affected by the wildfires. But yeah, ammunition and firearms that were being sent over there. They got to the point where the US is more or less depleted of ammunition. Their combat readiness is more or less depleted through sending all this to the front. It's Hex's job now to actually rebuild the stockpile of weapons and ammunition, amongst everything else that they've got to do. Madness, absolute madness. I've said madness quite a lot of times, and craziness, but the Democrats, you've got to stand for something. And the people in the, I don't know, the rank and file, the people who vote Democrat, stop listening to NBC, MSNBC, CNN, CBS. Turn to Fox, turn to Newsmax. Stop reading the left newspapers. Start, I don't know, start watching decent podcasts like Joe Rogan. Get some information from there. Rogan is not partisan in any way. Yes, he was Democrat. He turned against the Democrats because of the way they try to treat him. But he was quite open to having Kamala Harris on there. But they wanted him to go to her, which is not how it works. He has a little studio in Austin, Texas, and people travel to him. Trump travelled to him. J.D. Vance travelled to him. Elon Musk has been there a couple of times, travelled to him, and sat down and spoken with him for 3 hours at a time. Kamala Harris wanted him to go to her and to only do an hour, which, as we know from the Brett Baer interview, would have been cut down to 20 minutes, and then they would have been in the background going, wrap it up, that's it. Which is no way to get to know anybody. She would have run out of her scripted talking points and gone into a word salad, and she would have looked even worse than she did at any time. The only time she makes any sense is when she's drunk. She makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. She makes no sense the best of times. And Biden couldn't do anything unless it was written down and you had to read it from an auto cue. Kamala Harris, the same. She had to read everything from an auto cue. And I'm sure that during the debate with Trump that she had an earpiece in. You've seen those earrings. They are identical to some special earrings that were made for like spy operations, where you can actually, people can talk to you and you can't be heard or picked up by any microphones. Very clever. It was never proven, but speculated quite a lot. Right, I'm coming down now to Penrith. I'm going to turn off here and go across country. I'll wrap it up here. And please make your comments below. If you don't agree with what I'm saying, let me know. If you do agree with what I'm saying, let me know. I'm happy to hear all comments, good or bad, to be honest with you. I can even take the slagging off. I'm a big boy, big shoulders. I'm nearly 70 years old. I will be this year, right? And still working. Can't afford not to. But yeah, let me know, please. And if you got any value from this, then don't forget like, share, subscribe, or if you like, buy me a cup of coffee. be much appreciated. I love coffee. So, until next time, I'll say goodbye because I've got to turn off here now. So, bye.